Every day is a good day for a tag video, and today's no exception. Hi, I'm Nikhil with Shelf-Esteem, and this is the Counting the Days tag. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Again, I'm Nikhil with Shelf-Esteem. I'm a composer and also now a booktuber. You can find some of my music in the Wheel of Time Season 2, His Dark Material Season 3, and the official Brent Weeks companion album for his series Lightbringer, which came out last year. So I kind of wanted to take this time to talk a little bit about some books on my TBR, but not just any books. I was fortunate enough to be tagged by Emily, a fantastic booktuber. I'm linking her channel down below. I just love the way she talks about books and her choice of reading. So I'm really grateful that she tagged me. And this is basically about books on your TBR based on certain prompts. For example, like based on a cover, based on the author, based on the stylistic aesthetic, things like that. So without further ado, let's launch into the questions. I'm just pulling them up here. Counting the Days tag begins now. So the first question is, what book excites you on your TBR based on the cover? So I kind of did a little digging around. My wife actually read this a couple years ago and she raved about it, and I've been promising her that I would read it. And so I think I need to move this higher on my TBR. I'm thinking it might work well in October during spooky season, but that is none other than Empire of the Vampire by J. Christoph. Look at this cover. Come on. It's so awesome. I just love the way this thing looks. By the way, this kind of got yellow because it was sitting on a bookshelf that is right by the sun, by the window. Rookie mistake. But still a beautiful cover nonetheless. So this is going to be a book I'm probably going to read in October along with the rest of my kind of spooky books. I've heard this makes vampires scary again. And so I'm kind of excited to see what that's all about. The second one is author, TBR that you're particularly excited about based on the author. So I could name another Stephen King book, but there's another author out there that I'm also excited about, and that's because I've read 7 of his books so far, and I've liked all of 7. And that is none other than John Gwynne. Now, I'm very excited about reading the Bloodsworn Saga, his new trilogy, and he's coming out with, I think, his last book of the trilogy in October, November. So I'm really looking forward to reading those with my dear friend John from Disquieting Dragons, also linking his channel down below. Fantastic booktuber. We've been doing some buddy reads. And so we're going to be starting those, I believe, in September, if I'm not mistaken. And we're going to read one a month until the new one comes out. But yeah, I just love his character work. I feel like, kind of the fact that this one takes place in Norse mythology, extra excited about that. I haven't read too much that are influenced by Norse mythology, so I'm kind of really excited about what that would entail. And he's got he makes you care about characters kind of like George R.R. Martin does, in my opinion. So yeah, anything John Gwynne writes, I'm going to read. Question number 3, the premise. So what book are you particularly excited about based on the premise? So I have fallen in love with Robert McCammon recently. The heights of his books rivals the heights of Stephen King's. In my opinion, Swan Song is an all-timer for me. Boy's Life is an all-timer for me. And I've read a couple of his other books, and I like them as well. And so I've been looking at this one, part of the Matthew Corbett series called Speaks the Night Bird. It is part of, I think there's like 10 or 11 books or something so far. And he might be writing the last one soon. But anyways, this is kind of historical fiction, horror, set in the late 1600s. So I'm going to read the back here for you so you can kind of get an idea of what the premise is and why I'm particularly excited about it. But it says, the Carolinas, 1699. The citizens of Fount Royal believe a witch has cursed their town with inexplicable tragedies, and they demand that beautiful widow, Rachel Haworth, be tried and executed for witchcraft. Presiding over the trial is traveling magistrate Isaac Woodward, aided by his astute young clerk, Matthew Corbett. Believing in Rachel's innocence, Matthew will soon confront the true evil at work in Fount Royal. So I kind of like that whole investigative mystery mixed with historical fiction, mixed with horror. Seems like a mashup, and anything Robert McCammon does, I'm going to want to read. So Speaks the Night Bird is definitely on my list. That might be a good one for spooky season as well. If you've read it, let me know in the comments because I want to hear from you if I should move this higher, if you think it's worth reading sooner than later. But this is on my TBR for its premise. Question 4. A book based that I'm particularly excited about based on the stylistics of it. So I have fallen in love with Robin Hobb lately. I've been reading my way through The Realm of the Elderlings. I'm on book 2 right now, Royal Assassin, and I just can't keep away from it. I try to finish work as fast as I can during the day just so I can get to it and sneak a peek at the book here and there. I know it's meant to be savored because her writing is just so beautiful and her character work is so amazing, but I just want to read it all at once. So I'm particularly excited about the next book in the series because I feel like things are really, the stakes for Fitz is really starting to kind of heat up in the second book, and I can kind of see the larger politics at play. So I'm excited to explore book 3, Assassin's Quest, which we're going to read next month. And this is going to be a read along with John from Disquiet and Dragons, who I've already linked below, and Ellie from Bibbidi Bobbidi Books, who I'm also linking below. So I'm excited to have like a 3-person read along. So that's going to be fun. And kind of just finish off this Farseer trilogy and start making my way into the wider world of the Elderlings. So I just love Robin Hobb's stylistic choices, her ability to balance prose and also deep character work. Very hard to do that. I think usually you see authors with one or the other, but definitely not both. So I'm particularly excited about this one for that reason. Number 5, a book that particularly excites me based on its influence. So again, had to do some digging around, and I ended up finding, this is a book I'd heard about for a long time. I'd heard about the movie. I actually haven't seen the book or the movie. I know that's blasphemous to say, and you'll feel that way once you hear what book it is. And that is Gone with the Wind. Look at this old copy I got for like $1 at a library book sale. It's from the early 60s or late 50s or something. Yeah, it looks like 1969. Okay, so late 60s printing here. But a beautiful one nonetheless. And of course, I am always a proponent for kind of used books as well as beautiful new shiny covers. So I'm always excited to kind of read from a used book, especially something as illustrious as Gone with the Wind, a sense of the history of the book and the people who owned it previously. So that's always kind of fun when you get a chance to read a book that has had such a huge influence on 20th century literature like Gone with the Wind has. So that is my influence book. Emotional weight. So I've only heard, I can't really attest to this fact, but a lot of people say that the character work is second to none for this. And I've never been a big fan of like Westerns in fiction, like for reading. But I've heard great things about this book, and that is none other than Larry McMurtry's Lonesome Dove. So I've heard great things about this. I've heard it's an emotional gut punch. I've heard it's dark, but it's also riveting. I've heard the character work is second to none. And for that reason, emotional weight, Lonesome Dove. I'm going to get to this hopefully end of summer. If I can get to it next month. I have quite a few chonkers already, as you could tell, coming up. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to fit this in, but I was really hoping to, with the sun shining, kind of read a Western novel in the summer. So I don't know. We'll see how that all works. But emotional weight book, this is the one for me. Sense of humor. So I don't know too much about this series, and I don't actually own it. So I'm leaving a thumbnail up here. But my mother-in-law has been constantly raving about the Booktubers series. And I don't know if you've all read it. Let me know in the comments if you have. But I've heard it's really funny. I've heard if people like, people who like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy or kind of the absurdist fantasy of Terry Pratchett might like this series. So the Bobbyverse series, I think, is going to be my, sense of humor TBR. I actually read, as you can tell, I read kind of serious books. Like I'm always reading about war-torn countries or battles in fantasy or horror or something like that. Stephen King, so to read a humorous book is kind of rare for me. And Bobbyverse sounded like kind of a fun one. So I'm looking forward to checking that out. Last but not least, a challenge book. What excites me based on the fact that it's a challenging book to read? I'm really going to pick Malazan, and I am very excited about that, but in the interest of exploring more female fantasy authors and of hearing this author spoken about ad nauseum on Booktube now, especially over the last few months to a year, and that is none other than Jenny Wirtz, and the book series is The Wars of Light and Shadow. So it's like 11, 12 book series, something like that. And it's a magnum opus of hers. I've heard it's actually quite difficult to get into not because it's not, a joy to read. I heard the prose is great, but I've heard the character work is very complex. And if you like Malazan, you might like this kind of thing. So I've been very looking forward to checking out her works and that is definitely something I plan to read this year. If I can't get to Wars of Light and Shadow, I will at least try her standalone book, To Ride Hell's Chasm, just to kind of get a sense of what her series is like before I dive into the Wars of Light and Shadow series. So let's see how that all goes, but I'm definitely planning on getting to that this year, and that is my challenge book. So that was my Counting the Days tag, and I'm tagging a bunch of wonderful booktubers down below in case you're all wanting to join in on this tag with me. Thank you so much again to Emily for tagging me in this, and I'm really excited to be a part of the conversation. Let me know what your question answers would be in the comments below as well, because I would love to hear from you, and I'd love to kind of start a dialogue based on what you all think like would be your TBR busters based on this list of questions. So that's it from me. I'm Nick Hill with Shelf-Esteem. Thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you like this kind of content, and I'll be hitting you back with 2 to 3 new videos every week from here on out. So looking forward to having more great conversations with you all. So in the meantime, be good to yourselves, be good to each other. I'll see you on the next video. Take care.